Hello, everyone. I'm Keith DeStone, and I'm here as usual with Greg Nagy and Sarah and Janet and Elen for HeroesX Office Hours, or V15 of HeroesX. And today we're talking about the discussion that's going on about the hours 5 and 6 questions that Greg posed. And the hour 5 question is as follows. Greg says, in hour 5 of H24H, that's Greg's Heroes book, it took me twice as long to say what I wanted to say compared to the average length of the other chapters or hours. Sometimes I ask myself, was it worth it? But I ask the question differently here. Do you think that reading the songs of Sappho makes a difference in your overall view of Achilles? What are folks saying about this one? I hope the answer is yes, but what kind of difference?
Well, the participant is making a connection between Achilles, the Homeric hero, and Achilles, the bridegroom of Sappho, in Sappho, through the scene in scroll 9, when he's playing the lyre. Then he connects, the Iliad and Sappho's poetry through that scene where Achilles is closer to lyric than the word of warriors.
Wow. I like that formulation. I offer a friendly amendment. I'm sure the participant understands that professional classicists will say, wait a minute, the official dating of Sappho is around 600 BCE. It's a very rough dating, but that's what classicists will say. And then goodness knows what classicists will say about the dating of Homeric poetry. It depends on whether they read Parry and Lord and whether they read me. But aside from that, it's pretty clear that Homeric poetry is, by everybody's agreement, shall we say, older, or it crystallized at an earlier stage than the poetry attributed to Sappho, the songs of Sappho. So therefore, it's not Sappho's poetry. That's my friendly amendment. It's the poetry inherited or channeled by Sappho. But if our participant accepts that friendly amendment, and maybe the amendment isn't even needed, then I think it's simply a perfect formulation. I love it. I love it because I do think that the Iliad simply doesn't have enough space. It's hard to think of the Iliad as not having space for something when it's 15,000 plus verses long. But there's so much that has to be said. It doesn't really have enough space for showing Achilles as a lover, a romantic lover, and a romantic lover who can serenade. May I put it that way? And I love the idea that the Claire Andron that Achilles is singing to himself has that, may I say it this way, lyric infusion. Obviously, dear Elen, I could talk about this forever, so maybe I should be quiet and let's hear about other reactions.
Certainly. A participant mentioned that through Sappho, we are looking at Achilles with a different lens. And I'm going back to Rhapsody 9. Achilles is a potential husband for Briseis. Now in Sappho, he is the ideal groom of all times.
Yes. And again, all I can say is yes, most decidedly yes. 100 times yes. Beautiful formulations.
I'd like to pick up on a couple of things that people have said. The first one was a personal reaction to the poetry of Sappho. And the person has said that he mentioned the poems to his wife. and they both recalled their own wedding experience of 43 years ago. He doesn't use the word total recall, but I get the impression that very much is they were immediately transported back to that very moment.
That's so moving, and it sounds as if we can say mission accomplished. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that our team has Sappho in hour 5. It's just so beautiful, and I can't get enough of it. Even this weekend, I spent eternities on the poetic tradition represented by Sappho, and you can, if anybody would like to, look at Classical Inquiries, which is of course edited by our dear colleague Keith, and you will see that I'm still at it. I can't say enough. And isn't it a tragedy that this amazing poetry survives into modernity only in fragments? So it's not like Homeric poetry, which survives in its entirety when it comes to the Iliad and our Odyssey. We can't say that about Sappho, even though even in early Byzantine times, there was still a complete edition that intelligent readers were using. As late as that.
One would so love to have that.
And it's just horrible. It's just horrible. What a shame. What a tragedy.
There's another point I'd like to pick up on here. Someone has seen a comparison between those moments where the bride and bridegroom appear as gods, and comparing it to the way heroes become equal to gods when they're facing their deaths in the Iliad.
Yes. And that's another reason why it's so important, I think, to read Sappho while we read the Iliad. Yes. Again, all I can say is very enthusiastically and warm-heartedly to say yes, and in the most affirmative way. And I'm so glad that our participants are resonating with Sappho.
Totally.
Yes. Well, sounds like there was a positive answer to
Yes,
the effect of Sappho.
That's what I was hoping for.
So let's see, hour 6 then. This is Greg's question.
It's so hard to leave.
I'm ripping us away. Sorry.
But you have to drag me away.
Go to Classical Inquiries. You can get your fill of Sappho there.
Yes.
To die as a therapōn for someone else is to identify with that someone else. Patroklos certainly dies for Achilles, but to what extent does he really identify with him? It's a subtle question.
Yeah.
So how are people reading it?
Well, there's a comment from a participant about the different translations of the word therapōn. He's got a translation that translates the word as henchman, and he says that it affects our understanding of the text, the different ways of translating the word, because henchman has a negative outlook, negative. Yeah.
To him and to me. Yeah.
So why has the word therapōn been so difficult to translate?
Let's start with the word henchman, dear Hélène, because I think the translator is somebody whom I ordinarily just love to read, and that's Richmond Lattimore. I'm pretty sure that he's the one. Even though I love the translation of Lattimore, the translations that he does for both the Iliad and the Odyssey, in this case, I strongly disagree with his rendition, henchman. I'm sure he has good reasons for having used that word, and I don't really resonate with the history and prehistory of the English word henchman. So maybe it's my problem and the problem of the participant, but I too see that as a negative term. I would guess that Lattimore did not see it as a negative term. I'll leave it at that. But anyway, yeah, it's a very difficult word. And that's partly because, as I try to show in hour 6, in my own analysis, the way this word was used before it became, may I put it this way, exported. I used to say borrowed, but now I say exported from the languages of Asia Minor that are not Greek into the Greek language. That already is so culturally jarring. There are so many cultural problems with the exportation of the word, because the societies are so different. The societies of Asia Minor in the 2nd millennium BCE, which is as far back as I take this exportation, and the society that we could describe as the Mycenaean Empire, and then what happens to the poetic tradition that was already alive and well in the Mycenaean Empire. So I'm not surprised that we have problems. It's a tricky word. And I think one way to describe in English how tricky it is where do we get the idea of therapeutic, which is a matter of healing, as opposed to these other meanings where essentially, for example, a charioteer who takes the hit for the chariot warrior who is ready to jump off fully armed from the chariot. The fact that you can take a hit for somebody, well, that seems to involve charioteering as far as Homeric poetry is concerned, more than why you take the hit. And it's not always the charioteer who takes the hit anymore. So this is where Greg's favorite word for analysis, diachronic perspective, comes in. If you view this word through time, you're humbled by how many different contexts are still carried by the word. Albert Lord used this wonderful word in Singer of Tales, that words like this have an aroma, a fragrance. And that fragrance can take you way back, even if you don't understand, let's say in the 6th century BCE, what the word should mean, or if there is a unitary meaning for the word.
Okay. There's a comment. Patroklos can be seen more sensitive version of Achilles. So
Yes.
The other self, we are zooming in different side of Achilles through Patroklos.
Yes, I think so. And in a way, we almost need to put this question on hold. It's a beautiful question, but wait till we get to the part of the Iliad where Briseis sings a lament for Patroklos. And when we get to that part of the Iliad, and I already talk about it, I know, in hour 6, but maybe our readers haven't gone as far ahead yet, and that's okay. But once we're all on the same page, so to speak, and think long and hard about the words of Briseis when she is lamenting the death of Patroklos, I think the idea of a kinder, gentler Achilles will become even more clear.
Another of our participants has been thinking through all the implications of this term, the idea of ritual substitution, and is, trying to come to a formulation. So he's picked up on the Hittite tablet, and may they die, but I will not die. But he says here the opposite happens. The death of Patroklos leads directly to the death of Achilles. Well, directly 2 steps ahead. And, instead of Achilles being purified, his anger reaches a much more extreme with the mutilation of Hector's body. So instead of purifying, it seems to cause even more pollution. So he's trying to kind of think around that. So Greg, maybe you can help us with that.
Well, that's so beautiful. And I think this is what happens when there is an exporting of a very resonant word from one culture to another. And since I happen to be reading Jane Austen passionately every evening if I can, and it's very slow going because I like to read annotated editions where I can't help myself. I just read the annotations in the margins. I'm thinking of Sense and Sensibility, and how Jane Austen uses the word sensibility, and it's the exact opposite of the way we use sensibility today, because today's sensibility is what she means by sense. I mean, Jane Austen. And to make it even more complicated, it turns out that the two sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, you can't just say, oh, Eleanor is sense and Marianne is sensibility, because they keep exchanging their emotions so beautifully. And so you start thinking, well, at this moment is Eleanor herself 51% sensibility, and it's Marianne who is now 49% that, and she is more sense at this point. So anyway, I'm just giving one of many, many examples where if you look, for example, at French and English, the word sensible in French still means sensitive. I hope I'm right, Hélène, you're my fact checker. Whereas in English, sensible is, no emotions. I'm empirical about experiencing love or whatever. So is that a good illustration of how the exportation of the Hittite and Luwian word into a Greek context can lead to all sorts of malfunction? Well, but maybe the malfunction is a good function. Beautiful observation by this participant. That could be written up as a publishable essay. I'm just saying.
Well, friends, thank you again for this wonderful conversation. Can't wait till next time.
This is very hard to let go of. I always feel this during our sessions at each set of hours. It's such
Just
power.
makes me think about how Achilles had such a hard time letting go of Patroklos. Goodness. It led to all sorts of bad things.
Yes,
so we should be perhaps sensible. And
yes, sensible.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
We should be sensible. Hélène, am I using it right? Right.
Oh, yes, you are.
All right.
But
thanks, everyone.
I know that sensible is a false friend for English speakers, because when an English speaker tries to compliment a French speaker and say, you're very sensible, that may not come across well.
Okay, bye for now.